not to be confused with the United States Army World War II Unit Air Service Command. The Air Service, United States Army, was the military aviation service of the United States between 1918 and 1926, and a forerunner of the United States Air Force. It was established as an independent, but temporary branch of the U.S. War Department during World War I by two executive orders of President Woodrow Wilson. On May 24, 1918, replacing the Aviation Section, Signal Corps as the nation's Air Force, and March 19, 1919, establishing a military director of air service to control all aviation activities. Its life was extended for another year in July 1919, during which time Congress passed the legislation necessary to make it a permanent establishment. The National Defense Act of 1920 assigned the Air Service the status of combatant arm of the line of the United States Army with Major General in command. In France, the Air Service of the American Expeditionary Force, a separate entity under commanding General John J. Pershing, that conducted the combat operations of U.S. military aviation, began field service in the spring of 1918. By the end of the war, the Air Service used 45 squadrons to cover 137 kilometers of front from Ponte-Tilde-Mauson to Sedan. 71 pursuit pilots were credited with shooting down 5 or more German aircraft while in American service. Overall, the Air Service destroyed 756 enemy aircraft and 76 balloons in combat. 17 balloon companies also operated at the front, making 1,642 combat ascensions. 289 airplanes and 48 balloons were lost in battle. The Air Service was the first form of the Air Force to have an independent organizational structure and identity, although officers concurrently held rank in various branches. After May 1918, their branch designation in official correspondence, while on aviation assignment, changed from ASSC to AS, USA. After July 1, 1920, its personnel became members of the Air Service branch, receiving new commissions. During the war, its responsibilities and functions were split between two coordinate agencies, the Department of Military Aeronautics and the Bureau of Aircraft Production, each reporting directly to the Secretary of War, creating a dual authority over military aviation that caused unity of command difficulties. The 7-year history of the post-war Air Service was marked by a prolonged debate between adherents of air power and the supporters of the traditional military services about the value of an independent air force. Airmen such as Brig. General Billy Mitchell supported the concept. The Army's senior leadership from World War I, the United States Navy, and the majority of the nation's political leadership favored integration of all military aviation into the Army and Navy. Aided by a wave of pacifism following the war that drastically cut military budgets, opponents of an independent Air Force prevailed. The Air Service was renamed the Army Air Corps in 1926 as a compromise in the continuing struggle. Although war in Europe prompted Congress to vastly increase the appropriations for the Aviation Section in 1916, it nevertheless tabled a bill proposing an aviation department incorporating all aspects of military aviation. The declaration of war against Germany on April 6, 1917, putting the United States in World War I, came too quickly to solve emerging engineering and production problems. The reorganization of the Aviation Section had been inadequate in resolving problems in training, leaving the United States totally unprepared to fight an air war in Europe. The Aviation Section consisted of 131 officers, 1087 enlisted men, and approximately 280 airplanes. The administration of President Woodrow Wilson created an advisory aircraft production board in May 1917, consisting of members of the Army, Navy, and industry, to study the Europeans' experience in aircraft production and the standardization of aircraft parts. The board dispatched Major Reynold C. Bowling, a lawyer and military aviation pioneer, together with a commission of over 100 members, to Europe in the summer of 1917 to determine American aircraft needs, recommend priorities for acquisition and production, and negotiate prices and royalties. Congress passed a series of legislation in the next 3 months that appropriated huge sums for development of military aviation, including the largest single appropriation for a single purpose to that time, $640 million in the Aviation Act, passed July 24, 1917. By the time the bill passed, the term air service was in widespread, if unofficial usage to collectively describe all aspects of Army aviation.